Anyway, folks, welcome back to another episode of YWC Football Talk. Today, this is all Patriots draft, and who better to talk Pat's draft with than from Pat's Pulpit, Ryan Spagnoli. Ryan, welcome back to the show. How are you feeling today?
Good, man. How are you, Griff?
I'm doing good. Just kind of that post-draft withdrawal. It's kind of like Christmas almost, or like when you're planning like a boys' trip for a weekend, and like months and months of planning and thought go into it, and then all of a sudden it's just like in a snap, it's gone. Like
Yeah,
it happened.
that's a really good way to put it. I've never thought of it that way, but that's pretty spot on, and it's true, right? It's a lot of build up, a lot of different scenarios, right? There's so many mock drafts and information out there, and then Thursday comes, and for the most part, we were on the edge of our seat the entire time, waited a while, and then Friday comes and Saturday, and then it's over, and then now it's focused on OTAs and kind of the off-season work, and then getting into training camp in a few weeks. But it's kind of that downtime. It's pretty nice.
Exactly. I know football's sorry if you get my dog's going crazy in the background. And it's like that down. Like we were talking about this right before we started off camera. That it's kind of that downtime before the season starts. Like obviously rookie mini camps. I think some are going this weekend. Patriots start next weekend. But for the most part, I would just say, like, look, yeah, it's a slow time of year, but you know what? Before we know it, the season will be here. But you're right. Thursday was the first time for a draft where I was literally on the edge of my seat, where it was just like, okay, what's Detroit going to do? Okay, Sewell. Then 8, when Carolina went Horn, I'm just like waiting because I wanted Fields. But then when Chicago traded up, I just like had this like pit in my stomach, and then his name was announced. And it wasn't even like mad or anything. It's just like it was a little disappointed.
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, man, as much as we wanted it to happen, as the kind of the weeks went on, you start diving into some things with him. I don't think there was a real fit there. I think and that's no disrespect to him. He's a great player. I was really high on him. I would have loved him here. But when you kind of dive into what they look at in the quarterbacks, Mac Jones checks all the boxes. I guess we all should have seen it coming, but I think a lot of people fell into that trap of him going number 3. And the Patriots were very fortunate to get him at 15. I think if both of those guys were on the board at 15, I think they would have went Mac. And I think if Mac wasn't there and Fields was, I think they probably would have moved out. I actually don't think there was a scenario where Justin Fields ended up in New England. Solely because of the things, like I said, I don't think there was a true fit there. I think Mac Jones was their guy and their guy from the start. When you really dive into the tape and see some of the things he does, everyone gets mad when you throw the Brady comparison out there, but and when people say it, it's not, hey, he's going to come in and win 6 Super Bowls and be the best, second best quarterback ever. It's just his feel for the pocket, his understanding of how to run an offense, the pre-snap adjustments, the changing the protection pre-snap. It's little things like that where you say, I've seen this before, and it worked, right? So I think they honed in on him. They obviously probably got really good intel from Saban, but given the relationship there, and the more you read about him, the more you watch, the more you like. And I think they this was an absolute slam dunk pick, and I'm super excited for it.
You know what? Like when I said the Fields thing, it's just because like I thought that's where they were going and stuff. But then once they drafted Mac, I was in the moment. I was like, you know what? Like it's not exactly what I wanted originally. But then I warmed myself up to the idea of it, and then I just literally put in like Mac Jones highlights from 2020, and the two things I noticed right away was just like you said, his pocket awareness is great. Like there was a lot of those balls where he was getting a blindside hit was coming his way, still managed to get an absolute cannon. And that's the other thing too. Like I just said, the kid can chuck. He can chuck the ball. And like, that's what you want in a quarterback. Now, I agree with you with the Tom Brady comparisons that they play a very similar style. And I heard this on the Pulpit draft show where it's going to be a lot of yak. It's going to be a lot of those like short outlet passes. But if they want to let him fly and just release the ball, he's going to be able to do that too. So, and it's also the pick where I don't expect him to come in and start right away. Like if Cam's the week 1 starter, I'm fine with it. But one play I thought of was if this in the Saints box playoff game from last year, there was that one play where Winston came in, he threw that pass that Chicago tried to trick play New Orleans the week prior. I could see them doing something like that with Mac, where if they're in like a 3rd and 15 situation, bring him in and just get like a 15, 20-yard completion, just keep the drive moving forward, and then you put Cam back in.
Yeah, I think with them, they'll be super patient with him. It's an investment. You have 5 years. That's the beauty of having a first-round pick. You get the 5 years of team control. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of weight on his shoulders, just considering that he's the highest ever offensive player drafted by Belichick, first ever quarterback. He's deemed as the quarterback of the future, the next Brady type. So they're not gonna throw him in there in any moment unless they feel he's truly ready. And if that comes in training camp and he wows people, I mean, you read more about his preparation and how quick he can, pick up things and pick up an offense. There's certainly a possibility there. But I think, being patient, learning how to be a pro, learning how to, prepare from a week to week. It's a lot different from the college game, a lot longer of a season. I think they're in a really good hands. And I'm, me, I'm not the biggest Cam Newton guy. But when they did bring him back, I had said, you know what? If they're bringing him back with plans to draft a quarterback in the first round and have him sit under him, learn how to be a professional, a leader, develop into a professional, I'm on board with that. So I'm cool with it. Like I said, if things start to go south week 5, 6, and he's ready to go, I'm sure they'll be, Cam will be on a quick trigger, but they will be patient at the same time.
Exactly. And also, too, I don't think they're going to do any more of that. You know what? If Cam's playing bad in a game, they're not going to pull him and just throw Mac into the fire like they did with Stidham last year, which was very unfortunate. But I think, I just said that hypothetical of hey, this may or may not happen. But you know what? If they let him just marinate, if you will, I know it's a really different term, but that's how I can see it. Let him work with all the guys, because even too, most of their offensive weapons are locked up long term. So he can get those practice reps with guys like Bourne and Aguilar, Myers, Henry, Smith, etc. But just moving on now to the second round, this was a slam dunk. Just I love it pick, with Christian Barmore and the moving up to 38. Look, I know I love people that were saying, oh wait, they give up a lot, but the one thing I learned was, look, the Patriots needed to give up some draft picks just because of the amount of players. I think they only have I think it was 10 or 13 roster spots left. So to give up a couple of 4th round picks, I don't think was the total end of the world. Plus, too, we get a great guy with Barmore who I think can start day one.
Yeah, he'll be a rotational player. He'll play day one. He's a day one impact guy. That was a top 20 to 25 player they got at 38. Fell out just because I think the corners went off the board and it just didn't fall in his favor. It wasn't a very deep defensive tackle class, so I think a lot of people had assumed he'd go a little bit sooner. But to your point about the price to move up, you knew they were going to use those 3 4th rounders in some way, some form to play around and move up or down the board. Like you'd said about the roster spot. So that was a great pick. And I think if they were to sit at 46, he wouldn't have made it there. I'm sure they had teams behind them at 38 that, they'd assume would take a chance on him. But that's a first round talent that you got at 38. Someone that I don't think he or anybody had expected to hear his name called on Friday, more so Thursday. But yeah, a guy, like I said, they got ran all over, especially towards the end of last year. This is a guy who can take on double teams, get after the quarterback, 8 sacks in 11 games. Really good player. So I'm super excited. They obviously have Guy locked up. That's a 4-year contract. He's towards the end of his career. That probably really isn't a 4-year deal. It's probably more backloaded money for cap reasons. Henry Anderson, Devin Godchow. So he'll get some reps in there, but I could see, by the halfway point, Christian Barmore is playing 75 to 80% of defensive snaps.
100%. Because even too, I always saw Anderson and Godchow as kind of those rotational, 3rd down pieces where you just kind of plug and play them. But even to moving on, and then with 96, we took Ronnie Perkins from Oklahoma, the edge, who I think that's more of a rotational piece, kind of work on. But I think the scheme he played at Oklahoma to the scheme he played at the Patriots, it's going to be much different, but also more suited to his skill set as a whole.
Yeah, that's a top 60 player that fell for, got suspended for, I'm not even really sure the real reason, but, a typical Patriots pick, guy falls that they feel is a top player in the draft for, character or suspension or whatever reasons. They get him in the building, they mold him into that, Patriot way sort of culture. And he figures out this is a guy who plays at a high motor, can get after the quarterback. That front seven's absolutely loaded with depth. You get now off the edge, you get Judon, Winovich, Uche, Dietrich Wise, now Ronnie Perkins. So, loading up for the future. I think that was kind of their plan heading into days 2 and 3, where, hey, we got some really good players right now, but we could also use some youth there. I think they did that with McGrone. That's more of a 2022 pick because he's rehabbing that knee. But a middle linebacker, somebody that could play in the heart of your defense, plays downhill. So I like their plan, particularly the second and third days, simply because, some of those guys aren't maybe going to contribute as a rookie, but these are guys that you can get in your building and can be key pieces moving forward when some of your core guys now start to get a little bit older and the role opens up for them.
Exactly. And even we saw that too with Ramondre Stevenson, going in the 4th round. And obviously Sony's option was picked up due to injury. But look, when I'm hearing the LeGarrette Blount comparisons with him, like I can't do anything but smile. Like, because that was the one big issue last year with Cam was there was a lot of those hits where linemen would be coming after him or an edge and they would basically just get to him and he'd cower. Meanwhile, now if you have Stevens in there with him, he's going to be able to be great in pass protection. That I saw was Keegan's guy, like just to reference you guys. But another pick I think they really hit on here when I didn't think they were going to draft a running back, but then I talked to Keegan a few days before the draft and he kind of changed my mind on that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing with him. He's an early down back, can handle the load, short yardage situations, really good in pass protection. I mean, he's 240 pounds. He can take on an edge. He can take on a big guy and protect the quarterback. That's something James White was very good at. Obviously, he's a little bit undersized, but this can kind of help take the load off of Damian Harris, who's had some injury concerns his first 2 years. We know when he's on the field what he's capable of, but from a true pass protection, Ramondre Stevenson can really help them out, and especially, like I said, in those short yardage situations, pick up 2-3 yards, really wear that defense down with his big body.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of that guy where he kind of gets in and just kind of even moves the play a couple of yards more than you think think what someone would get. And even too, I like that where, say for example, if you have Harris get 1st and 2nd down, and then say if they're like 3rd and 2, you put Stevens in there just to run the ball through and just keep extending the drive.
Sure. Yeah. No. That's his bread and butter.
Exactly. And then even too, you got guys like Joshua Bledsoe, William. I'm trying to remember his name. I think it's Shatter is his last name from Colorado. I feel like those guys are good. It's the same thing too. Bring them in young, develop them, and we're not expecting them to start right away, but you need guys like that look, you can build to have later on in the roster. Even too, I think Shatter could potentially be a rotation piece, but we'll ultimately see.
Yeah, you can never have too much tackle depth, obviously. Wynn and Brown are on 1-year deals essentially Wynn's option got picked up, but a big payday in 2 years. Trent Brown's on a 1-year deal. You like what you saw from Justin Herron, but can he be that true swing tackle and really fill in when those tackles go down? So, in those 5th, 6th, 7th rounders, you're kind of just throwing darts. If they pan out, they pan out. I mean, look at Onwenu last year. Jawan Bentley was a 5th rounder. I think he gets a lot of unnecessary slack on his game considering where he was drafted and what he's capable of. But yeah, with those, it's trying to find depth. And if you strike a diamond in the rough, it's great value.
Exactly. And then there's the last pick of the draft, Trey Nixon, obviously the famed Ernie Adams pick, which hopefully we find out the secrets one day of his success. But where do you see Trey going? Like, where do you see him really being plugged into the roster?
Yeah, it's tough. Those 7th rounders are tough to crack that 53-man roster. If they can get him through waivers, he might be a practice squad guy. I haven't watched too much about him. I know some people did some threads on him and dove into his film a little bit, but I mean, they took a receiver. Granted, it was the 7th round, first one they've taken since N'Keal Harry, I believe. So that's a guy. Crowded receiver room, as crazy as it sounds, but it'll be tough for him to truly make that 53-man roster right out of camp. If he can contribute on special teams and separate himself in other ways, great, all the power to you. But that might be a developmental guy that maybe they can sneak through waivers and develop on their practice squad.
Exactly. That's a perfect thing I would say too. Like, I didn't know too much about him. So like you said, a lot of those 7th round guys are just, you're throwing you're shooting and it's blanks in the dark, or even too, it's just a shot on a dartboard where you don't know what you're going to get. But look, if they pan out, they pan out. And if they don't, then it is what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And even too, like I just brought up the whole Ernie Adams retirement thing. I feel like maybe we'll learn about the pink stripes one day, but you know what? I feel like it's probably one of the most unnoticed character guys in the room just when it comes to the draft. Like, Patriot fans know about him, but I don't know how too many people outside of Patriot circles really know what kind of genius he's created.
Yeah, I mean, you heard for years, whenever there's a big, whenever Ernie Adams comes on the headset, everyone says, shut the fuck up, basically, listen to Ernie. But this is a guy who he developed, scouting reports. He wrote a book on the book of scouting. Just a behind the scenes guy that really never wanted much credit. We didn't really hear too much about him till, the late 2000s, but his impact on the dynasty, his impact on this organization, goes much further than what he does. I don't think anybody really knows. I know his title was director of football research or something like that, or player research. But that's a guy who is smarter than anybody in the game of football. And I think a lot of the success on and off the field is due to Ernie Adams.
Exactly. And the other thing I got to say too is going back to the Mac Jones pick, I like it as well because it just kind of silences the Jimmy rumors. Like, for as much as we like have a special place in our hearts for him, it's just the fact that his contract's there and what we would have had to do to get him off or who we would have had to take off the books to acquire him. I'm glad to just all that quarterback dramas put the bed in. It's not a year-to-year thing. Like, hey, look, we've got like a 5-year window.
Yeah, I think to be honest, man, I was hearing before the draft, if with under the assumption Mac Jones was going 3, I think their plan was to move back and accumulate more picks to then go after Jimmy Garoppolo on day 2 or 3 of the draft and kind of soften the blow of the capital. Maybe a 2 and a 4 would have costed them. So I think Jimmy Garoppolo was in their plans until Mac Jones started to slide down the board. That was kind of 1A, 1B type of situation. So I think if Mac Jones isn't here right now, Jimmy Garoppolo may be a Patriot. I think that was kind of in their plans as kind of a plan B. They might have beggars can't be choosers, and they would have had to work something out with 49ers.
Exactly. And either way, there'd be a quarterback wearing number 10 in Foxborough this coming fall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's for sure.
Yeah. Even though we were talking earlier too, how like, oh, look, the off season's here. Like, this is like the true off season where there's not a whole lot going on unless you're a Packers fan, but we won't get into that. With the schedule coming out next week, I just wanted to ask you like a random question off the top of your head. If you had to pick someone or think who you think will be in the building week 1 if the Pats are hosting, who would you pick?
I would say Buffalo. It's been a while. I think that'd be a pretty good game. You can make it the Sunday night game. I think, Buffalo's kind of that team on the rise, took a major step forward last year, but the Patriots, I think, are, still considered the kings of the AFC East until the Bills start to consistently win this thing. So I think from a viewership standpoint, that'd be great. I think they'll push the Brady game out into November, December when both teams are really hitting their stride. So yeah, if I had to guess, I'd say Buffalo week 1.
All right. One I think could be potentially week 1 in Sunday Night Football as well is that game against the Dallas Cowboys, the added in 17th game. I know it's kind of like random, but I just think if you get 2 teams like that, especially too considering
I think Dallas plays the Giants every week 1. I think that might be a tradition for them.
Oh, yeah, I know. I have a few friends who are Giants fans and they hate that. Yeah. I just thought of it because I was like, you know what, Kraft and Jones are the 2 architects, really, if you will, behind the TV deals. So I feel like to put them in there, plus 2, Patriots Cowboys sells itself. I would have liked to see them flex the rules to have it be Patriots Bucks week 1, but I saw some people suggesting Thanksgiving night, which I am totally against.
Yeah, I don't think it can be Pats Bucks because typically they have that Super Bowl winner play the first game of the year Thursday night, and Tampa's coming to Foxborough. So Tampa could play the Saints or something like that. That game will be home for them. That should be the first game of the night of the week.
Oh, I know. I know that'll be the Thursday night game, like Tampa. I'm just saying it would be nice to see them, like, change the rules around just because.
Oh, yeah.
Not even just Patriot fans are going to be watching that game. Everyone's going to be, and then the whole build-up all week of, what's going to happen, like with Brady shaking hands and everything. When we all know all along, Brady's shaking hands with everybody on our sideline.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that'll be hyped up all week. I think middle of the season would be great.
Yeah, like how I said Thanksgiving. I feel like if you do it maybe right around week 8 or 9, even, or somewhere in there, like right after the trade deadline in Sheridan.
Yeah, November, December, right? Like week 10, 11, I think is a good spot for that game.
Exactly. That's all I could say. I just wanted to ask that just to feel, because like, look, for as much as I love the draft and stuff, I always like schedule release because I always like look to plan out my things. But I like your suggestion of Buffalo to open the season up because I don't think we've opened up against Buffalo since I think 2008 or 2009.
Yeah, it was I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time we opened up with them was Brady's first game back from his ACL. So yeah, that would be 2009. I don't know if they've played week 1 since then, but that'd be a pretty good game.
Yeah, no, I'm on board with it. So I guess we just have to wait until next week to see what happens, and then see some crazy outlandish prediction of what our record could potentially be by one Adam Rank.
Yeah, for sure. You go week to week and see what they are, and when Mac Jones might come in.
Exactly. But before I get you out of here, do you think the ceiling for their wins has really changed after the draft and free agency, or do you think it's still around like best? Like, what's your best case scenario?
I think best case scenario is 10, 11 wins. When you look at it, considering they won 7 games last year, they were a couple turnovers away from winning 2 to 3 more. You expect Cam to be better than last year, given the talent around him now. So I think if Cam Newton's your quarterback for 16 or 17 games now, I think 10, 11 wins is doable. I think 11's probably their ceiling. I think they'd float around 9, 10. If he's the quarterback for the entire year, Mac plays and he's ready, and things can change. But I think if Cam is your quarterback for the entire year, I think you're looking at around 9, 10 wins.
Exactly, because even I have a bunch of teams that I think could finish anywhere from 5th in the AFC to 10th in the AFC. So I feel like they can be in that. They'll be in that like wild card bubble unless Buffalo takes a significant step back.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Ryan, I just want to thank you once again. I know you're a very busy man, taking some time in your schedule to join me to talk some Pats. Enjoy the Bruins game tonight. I can see by your hat you guys getting ready for the playoffs down there too, just like I am with the boys up north. Hopefully we finally win a round. We'll find out in a few weeks.
Maybe we'll see you in the cup, man. Maybe we'll see you in the cup.
Maybe we will, but I feel like I won't be seeing any of you guys on social media just because
we'll get a little side bet going if we do. I'll send you something. You send me something.
You know what? I like the sounds of that. We'll cross that bridge if we ever get there. But anyway, Ryan, thanks once again for coming on YWC Football Talk, and have a good night.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.